fire for morning coffee. Decided to try to answer some of the questions. There were a lot of questions the other day, which everybody asked, which I really appreciate, but I didn't get to all of them. So I'm hanging here at Cherry Valley Co-op, and I've returned after about a week at the apothecary, and I'm all stocked up for the Forage Mobile tour, and I'm just making some coffee here, starting a smoky fire. And I wanted to talk about a couple things. One of them is Traumatize Versicolor. So let me go grab one. So here's a look at Traumatize Versicolor, otherwise known as the turkey tail mushroom. And this one has a white porous underside and is one of the most medicinal mushrooms out there. Dosing Traverse every day. Hey, Christopher? What do you mean you've been dosing Traverse? Traumatize? I would assume. Let me just tend to this fire right quick. And there's a little technique with fire making. If you put your fingers together and you make that little diamond shape and you blow in there, it really helps to conserve your wind. So I've posted a bunch about turkey tail, and I also have an article on my website, returntonature.us, and I talk about some of the medicinal aspects of turkey tail. The most ridiculous part of turkey tail is that it grows everywhere, but they just started actually synthesizing PSK, which is polysaccharide K, from it. And so now it's becoming a cancer medication in the medical industry, but it will have such a name, such a bizarre name, that nobody's going to know it's just turkey tails out of the backyard. And so turkey tails are very important anti-cancer herbs, mushrooms, as well as helpful for the immune system, liver. These have been clinically shown to reduce breast tumors, which is really important and really insightful. And so you can find these all over the place. What's up, friends? Welcome, welcome. And they're pretty abundant. What I like to do is, what I'm doing here is making some coffee, some morning coffee, and you can totally take these turkey tails. Let's see if I can rest this on. And just rip them up and add these to your teas or your coffee or anything like that, and you just rip them up, put them inside, and then if you simmer them for a while, so now it's coffee fortified with Traumatize Versicolor. So there's all those products for mushrooms and mushroom coffee and stuff like that, but you can make your own very easily. You can also take coffee and brew any tea or chaga or anything like that, and then use that as the water. So that's always possible. And then you fortify your coffee, and that can add all kinds of herbs into your diet, even if you drink coffee. This wood is really wet. Give me a minute here. So turkey tail basically has a couple lookalikes. One of them is Sterium ostrea. That's called the false turkey tail. There's even some shown clinical research on that. A lot of people debate back and forth whether it's medicinal or not. I've had people tell me they drink tea of it all the time. I like to make double extracted tinctures from turkey tail. So what that means is I'll put it in alcohol, I'll blend it, and then I'll strain that and make a decoction from the remaining mushrooms and then combine those. And that's a really great way to get a lot of medicinal compounds out of the mushrooms, because there are polysaccharides, there are all kinds of amazing things. So a polysaccharide is basically, saccharides are sugars, and polysaccharide is like a compound of sugar. And so actually when they're polysaccharides versus monosaccharides, they're incredibly medicinal, and they have these anti-cancer benefits. So even a little bit in your coffee or your tea is better than none. Give me a moment here. So there were so many questions the other day, and I tried this new thing where I tried to do a video, those little video clips for every question, and that was pretty tedious and didn't work out very well. So I'm not going to do that again. But the issue and the question is how to do herbal question and answers, where people can submit questions and then I can read them and respond. So I do have a bunch of those saved, the questions that people asked but I didn't get to. Let me go find one or two. All right, so somebody mentioned their son has food allergies, and they think it's from vaccines, and what should they do about that? What can be done? And so it's really important to understand that basically the body has an immune function largely dictated and governed by the lymph system. And eventually what happens is that the lymph system gets so taxed that it starts getting autoimmune disorder. And once the body has autoimmune disorder, it starts attacking itself, and then it can't really be healthy anymore. And so the first question is, how do we tonify and treat the lymph? What do we work with there? So lymphatic herbs, liver herbs, and immunomodulating herbs are really the core basis of allergies, at least for setting the pace for the immune system to change. So when your immune system is overtaxed, hello Emna Woods, welcome. When your immune system is overtaxed and it's full of toxins, it can't really deal with things like pollen, or it can't really deal with anything like food. So the first question is, how do we kind of cleanse and purify the lymph system over time so that the body can have less attention on the difficulties it's having with autoimmunity, and more attention on taking a pollen molecule and flushing it out of the body without reacting. So some of my favorite lymphatic herbs are cleavers, gallium operine, which is everywhere. That's related to bedstraw, which is also a gallium. Bedstraw isn't tacky. Cleavers is tacky, so it sticks to your clothing. That doesn't make a very good tea, but it makes a sure good tincture. And of course I have tincture of cleavers. I also have acetate tinctures of cleavers, which means a blend of alcohol and apple cider vinegar I use. So if you're interested in that, let me know. I also have a Lymph Love blend, which is some of my favorite lymph herbs, because I think the lymph system tonification is so important. And so that has, as I mentioned, cleavers, acetate, and the other herbs are red root, violet leaf. What else is in there? That's all I can remember right now. And then one of my favorite but controversial lymphatic herbs is pokeweed. So it turns out that pokeweed has a lot of poisonous properties in the wrong context and in the wrong time. So pokeweed, the berries are edible, but the seeds are very toxic, and the greens and the stems are very toxic unless you take young shoots and then you have to simmer them, boil them in 3 changes of water to get them to be edible. But when the plant is young in the spring, you can dig up the root, and a tincture of pokeweed root is really effective for the lymph system. It's the most effective thing I've ever found, and it's known as a low-dose herb. So you may have heard me talk about low-dose herbalism versus, like, you know, stinging nettle. You could basically take shots of stinging nettle until you're drunk and not really have a problem. But certain herbs like pokeweed or lobelia or ghost pipe or anything like that have a toxic threshold. So if you take too much of it, you may vomit, you may feel sick, or you could even die. So pokeweed root, when it's tinctured, is a low-dose herb. So what we're talking about is drops, not droppers full. Pokeweed is a really amazing lymphatic stimulant. It wouldn't be like the first step. So if you had, you know, just wanted to cleanse yourself, you might stick to cleavers, dandelion, burdock, things like that. But if you had some more serious chronic issue, you may look to pokeweed. Pokeweed is one of the best, and it's also likely to be anti-cancer. A lot of people have worked with pokeweed for cancer. So poke is a really common plant, which is totally poisonous used in the wrong context. And I find the ironic thing about pokeweed is that sometimes people think that any poisonous plant is an invasive plant, and so they should get rid of it. But in the case of pokeweed, its Latin name is Phytolacca americana, and so it actually is totally native to this land. So that's a really interesting thing. You know, poison ivy is also native here, more native than us. And so not everything here is for man's dominion over the earth. Although in the right ways can be utilized. So if you get on a lymphatic kind of protocol, then the other thing is to combine with some kind of tea, which is going to help liver support and cleanse the blood. So anything that's bitter is going to do that, right? So dandelion, burdock, milk thistle, but also anything that's aromatic is going to help with that and taste a little better. So lemon balm, peppermint, spearmint, anything like that, it's also going to help cleanse the blood and reduce allergen, reduce allergic reaction. And then the other step to that is immunomodulators. So those are a class of herbs and mushrooms which take a longer time to affect you, but actually help to restore immune function. So you kind of have these two pairs, adaptogens and immunomodulators. And adaptogens kind of help your body. That's a new term from communist Russia, a newer term from communist Russia, where they were looking for herbs that can actually stimulate energy similar to coffee so that they can get people to work more. So it's kind of a corrupted idea, an adaptogen. It's basically for getting people to overwork themselves. But you know, when you're an adaptogen helps your body adapt, and what that means is adapt to external work conditions, stressors in your life, but also helps your cells adapt to stressors. And so when you have stress, you have things like cortisol shoot up, and cortisol is very toxic in the body. So if you have high cortisol levels, basically the body starts eating itself. And so adaptogens are herbs which have been shown to do things like reduce cortisol levels, reduce inflammation, help with energy, help the cells actually produce more energy, which is not always the, fix it. So we also have to think about our diet and our lifestyle, how much we're sleeping. You can't just take ashwagandha and not sleep, That's the abuse of coffee, that's the abuse of adaptogens. But in this high-paced world, where everybody's thinking go, 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 and I have to work a 9 to 5, and I can never take a break, and I can't sleep, and all that, people are using adaptogens sort of improperly and overdoing it. And then the other factor with allergies is immunomodulators. So immunomodulators like turkey tail, reishi, chaga, all of those are really helpful for restoring the balance of the immune function. We often think that we get tricked by, this consumerism of herbalism, like boost your immune system, boost your immune system, boost your immune system. immune boosting. No, Matt, coca leaf is not an adaptogen. Coca leaf is a stimulant, right? So that's where coffee is a stimulant, not an adaptogen. Ashwagandha is not necessarily going to make you feel caffeinated. There's no caffeine or other compounds to stimulate you. There's compounds in there which will help your body produce energy differently. Very different than kind of give you energy. Like coffee is like molecules of energy, right? Where ashwagandha has molecules of nutritive principles which will help feed your cells to produce more energy. So it's kind of less about supplementation and more about giving your cells food. Now it can be used improperly, and you know, you could just get no sleep and use ashwagandha coffee to get yourself throughout the day, and that will help and that will mitigate things. And I know life can be very stressful and full of obligation and all that, but you know, obviously with something like overexerting ourselves, we need proper care, proper rest, relaxation, meditation, things like that. So with the medicinal mushrooms are really the best immunomodulators, and those are basically behind all immune and inflammation conditions. And I think that's a huge factor in all of our healing, is that we've been bombarded with so many toxic chemicals since birth that we have kind of autoimmune issues. And Crohn's is a result of autoimmunity, or rheumatoid arthritis is a result of autoimmunity, or chronic cold and flu. Those are all signs that the immune system is out of whack. So cleaning the lymphatic system is one of the important ways to address allergies, right? Because what is an allergy? An allergy is a reaction of your body that it's overwhelmed and that it can't handle what's happening. That's not necessarily the thing's fault, like pollen. That's your body's inability to deal with things. And that's a very different paradigm. So you go to an allergist, you get an allergy test, they tell you, oh, it's all pollen's fault. Just hide from pollen and never expose yourself to pollen. Well, what did indigenous people do? Just cover themselves with gas masks? Did they have as many runny noses and pollen allergies as us? Or is it a matter of the lead and the heavy metals, the mercury levels in our brains and in our lymphatic systems that are causing us to have autoimmune reactions to things that are totally normal? And I think it's more on that side, right? We're not getting the air, the oxygen, the water, the food quality that we used to, and as a result the body's starting to shut down and eat itself, because that's the only way that the body can tell you that something's wrong. You know, I think so much of our illness is about the body telling us that something is wrong, that we try to suppress those symptoms and make it go away as fast as possible instead of kind of address that and start tonifying the body. So instead of boost your immune system, which can cause allergies, right? Allergies are an immune system that's overworking itself. How do you mitigate those? So cleansing the blood with aromatic or bitter herbs, taking immunomodulators and adaptogens are a really good start, as well as with pollen allergies. Obviously the raw local honey thing is really important, because then you're eating the local pollen instead of putting it up your sinuses. Hey Alyssa, so Alyssa says, should adaptogens and immunomodulators be used complementary, symbiotically, or are immunomodulators better line of defense? Immunomodulators are not a line of defense. You don't take them, like when people, you know, take reishi when they have a cold. No, you should take reishi for 6 months before you get the cold. They work slowly and gradually over time. So immunomodulators and adaptogens can be used in conjunction. They're best in conjunction, and they don't contradict each other at all. They're complementary. So Emna, what's up? You said, what's my opinion about ginger? So ginger is really great. Raw ginger is more heating than cooked ginger. So if you're a pitta type, if you get too much heat, then ginger may not be your best friend. But if you cook it, it's going to be less spicy. So what I'll take is like a thumb-sized piece of ginger, chop it up, put it in 2 to 4 cups of water and simmer that down I'll bring it to a boil, and then I'll simmer it down for maybe 15 minutes. And that's a really great base. And then what you could do is pour that over green tea, or pour that over coffee, or pour that over anything. And then you get all those wonderful compounds from ginger. But ginger is really good as a digestive tonic, a digestive aid. So if you have slow, sluggish, cold digestion, ginger helps as a carminative to heat your digestive system up, to help you reduce gas, kind of feeds your stomach. So ginger is really helpful. Ginger is a great herb, and of course it's a root that mostly is coming from India, Asia, places like that. And there's also galangal, which is very similar, and of course turmeric is somewhat similar as well, but doesn't have that kind of sharp, spicy flavor like ginger does. Matt says, do I know if cannabis or any of its compounds apply here? Well, sure. I don't know that cannabis is an immunomodulator or an adaptogen, but I know that cannabis leaves are extremely nutritive, so that might be part of the factor. I'm gonna move myself. Of course, I sat right where the smoke is. Just give me a minute. So I wouldn't consider that cannabis is an immunomodulator or an adaptogen, but it can be very helpful. And one of the things it helps with is inflammation. So obviously CBD is incredible for inflammation, but I don't think it's any better or more effective than any other herb, honestly. I think it's, in a way, cannabis is standing up and saying, hey, I'll lead the charge here in returning to plants, and the medical industry just can't fight against cannabis because it's too strong. And so a lot of that's starting to pick up, but it's a key into all herbalism. Cannabis is not any more of a miracle cure than nettle and lemon balm and all these other herbs, but it does have, I think, a high level of antioxidants, and it also has a lot of minerals. So juicing cannabis leaf is really nutritive. The THC and the CBD, obviously, not only THC is psychotropic, so we have receptors to it, but CBD is incredibly cancer killing and nutritive. And also, if you haven't seen those videos of children with seizures, who literally get them completely stopped within seconds of cannabis, that's the kind of stuff that's turning the medical industry on its head. So it is effective, very helpful. The other factor in that, I forget what the conversation was. Oh, I was selling ghost pipe. Somebody said I shouldn't sell ghost pipe because it's a rare endangered native plant. It's true, it's a rare endangered native plant. I hope that I came across showing that I'm harvesting very sparse amounts, very carefully, with a lot of respect. And I hope that I come across not in a way of saying, yeah, just exploit this, totally everybody go rip it out and sell it to each other. Obviously that's not my intent. But someone was mentioning, well, CBD, cannabis is, effective, a replacement for ghost pipe. And actually it's not. It's not even close. It doesn't have nearly the amount of analgesic effect that ghost pipe has at such a low dose. Also, cannabis requires a monoculture. So to make CBD oil, you need thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of plants. Well, guess whose hands that puts it into? Large-scale agriculture industry. So do you want a monoculture of corn, or do you want a monoculture of cannabis? And is that really any better? So when we look to our medicine sources, especially if we're looking to concentrated extracts, we should think about what it came from and how much square acreage it required to produce that. So is cannabis the solution to all things? I don't think so. Is it a helpful ally? Definitely. Is it better to grow it in your backyard than give it to the hands of industrial agriculture, which will have Marlboro, Monsanto, genetically modified cannabis cigarettes on the market in no time? Is that your medicine? Is that healthy? Is that helpful? So what we see is that whole industry is being taken over by larger and larger corporate interest, and that will change the face of everything they do. And you know, organic certification is kind of sketchy, and all that stuff is just one big giant multi-level marketing scheme, when stinging nettle, lemon balm, etc. is also very effective, a lot cheaper, a lot less controversial, and grow like weeds. So does weed. Weed grows like a weed. Yeah, Elisa Vorka, juicing the leaves of cannabis to me is like probably one of the most medicinal options if you have that available. The flower, of course, smoking the flower is pretty medicinal too, but you know, has its side effects as well. Lethargy, sluggishness, sometimes suppressive dreams, sometimes lack of motivation. Of course, you have indica and sativa, which are the two main strains. Indica means into couch, so that's a more downer, and then sativa is known as more of an upper. But it's not any sort of more effective than, you know, ghost pipe and nettle, for example. And so really the goal is not, you know, this is one of those things where people are like, what's the best for this? What's the best for that? Oh, wait for the airplane. You know, what can I take that's the best for X, Y, or Z? But that changes by region. You know, what you should take for X, Y, or Z is what's effective for that at the right dose, that's as local as possible. And that's always the big question. Even ashwagandha, now we're overusing ashwagandha. I'm sure that's giving Indians in India more incentive to harvest more and more ashwagandha. Some of that stuff has been growing for 7 to 15 years. So now they're digging up more and more roots, and that kills the plant. And the question is, as we expand these markets, these fad trends, do we have enough conscientious caretaking practice along with them? And usually we don't. And you can see that in industrial agriculture. Even if it's organic, it's still a monoculture. They still cut down trees. You see that with coconut oil. You know, we saw that with palm oil, so now it's, you know, a big deal. We want to reject palm oil because it kills bonobos, and we love bonobos, so we don't want to kill them. And they're making monocultures of palm trees everywhere to fulfill this need of cheap, nasty palm oil. Now, you think it's any different with coconut oil? They're cutting down pristine rainforest, which are polycultures, which have many products, to grow monocultures to keep up with the demand of coconut oil. And so we are doing the same thing with certain herbs. Like that happened with ginseng, that happens with quinoa, happens with ashwagandha. It'll keep happening because what we need is more what's called like a bioregional approach. Now, I like ashwagandha, I take ashwagandha, but I'm not like fixated on it. And I also think that it's good to pulse things, so take it for a couple weeks and then you run out and you wait. Emna Wood says bonobos? Yeah, those are kind of monkey. Maybe it's orangutans, that's what it was. And so palm oil, right, industry is chopping down the rainforest, making toilet paper out of trees, old growth trees, to grow more plantations, right? So this is a system of plantations. This is how corn is grown. This is how tea is grown. This is how all kinds of things are grown, like the colonial plantation system, which was really started by England. You know, England started the, what was it called? The British Tea Company, something like that. And what they did was they took over India and other countries in Asia, and then they started having plantations of monocultures of tea, cutting down the jungle to make more tea so that they can have a global industry. So whenever you have a global industry, you're going to have a demand which can never be fulfilled, right? So you need to create more supply. So with palm oil or coconut oil, what they're doing, West India Tea Company, thanks Matt. So what they're doing is they're exploiting the forest, they're chopping down the forest, they're monoculturing to keep up with the demand. And so the same is true with coconut oil, which is why You know, I'm looking to local animal sources more than I ever have in my life, and it's becoming extremely sensible, in my opinion, to look locally versus, you know, live off of coconut oil from a health food store, which is also exploiting the forest, having effects all over the world. Industrial shipping, you know, kills animals. It's hard to say that industrial shipping of any sort is vegan because it does kill animals. It does cause harm to the planet. Anything that burns fossil fuels, obviously, and the more things are shipped from all over the country and the world, the more we're burning fossil fuels, which definitely is not aligned with the principles of veganism, which is don't harm animals. So yeah, factory farming is disgusting, but you know, large-scale industrial agriculture, even if it's vegetables, is also causing a lot of those problems. So we're not in the clear just because the plastic package in the grocery store says vegan. You know, there's a lot more to consider, a lot more to think about when we're choosing our sources, be it herbs or foods. Yeah, Matt, the West India Tea Company, there's a great book I read called Liquid Jade. That's such an insightful look at how the tea, you know, plantations and the birth of England started. Of course, that's what, you know, World War II was largely about, knocking England out of a lot of different countries where they've enslaved people, and they had, you know, a small country, but they had ships, so they went all over the world exploiting indigenous people for monoculture agriculture. And that's still going on in large ways, in different methods, in different ways all over the world, and that's something that we maybe need to address and scale down. So, you know, Ghost Pipe is not sustainable if we make a multinational corporation over Ghost Pipe and then ship it all over the planet because it's the best for this, that, and the other thing. But that's not really herbalism. That's not how herbalism works. It's not about what is the best for this, what is the best for that. The best thing you have is what you're actually going to take. The best thing is what you actually have locally available, and there are always kind of replacements. There's no one thing that's best for everything. So this is kind of an alchemical flaw, a flaw in the philosophy of alchemy, right? So Paracelsus, you know, designed this idea of spagyric. So separation, purification, and recombination. So that's what started the idea that there was one thing inside of everything that's the highest. That's the alchemical gold, right? So that's a philosophical concept, but it's almost like we started taking it literally. And so now we look for isolated ingredients, and we think that there is, you know, turmeric is genetic crud plus 1 or 2 isolated ingredients. And so they isolate curcumin and they inject it into your veins as if turmeric is now inferior to injecting curcumin into your veins. Now, that's not necessarily true, and what that does is cause all kinds of side effects. And we forget the concept of synergy. So that's been lost to this totalitarian isolationism. We forget synergy. So maybe you don't get as much curcumin in fresh turmeric, but you get a host of other chemicals that actually causes things like bioavailability, absorption. So it's not a matter of injecting 50,000 milligrams of vitamin C into your body. It's about when you eat an orange, you may absorb more vitamin C than you do by injecting synthetic vitamin C into your bloodstream. Your body doesn't know how to eat through your bloodstream. It wasn't designed for that. So we're using these forceful methods as if they are a replacement to the fact that you've had a mouth for millions and millions of years. So just because it's an isolated ingredient, just because curcumin is standardized, just because we have that whole kind of industry, doesn't mean there's best, and highest. And that's something that happens a lot. You know, people message me, they're like, what's the best for this condition? What's the best for that condition? What's the best for that condition? And so what I try to remind people of is that's not how it works. How it works is that you have herbal actions, right? So you've heard these words. Immunomodulator is sort of a modern herbal action, but you have these eclectic herbal actions, right? So febrifuge, mucilage, styptic, abortifacient, all of those things are eclectic, what did I just call them? Herbal actions. And so those actually help you to see the basically the cross relation between herbs. So certain herbs have similar properties. So let's take, slippery elm, and let's take sassafras leaf, or even better, mallow. So slippery elm, you have to strip the tree. You basically kill the tree, and then you get the inner cambium, and you dry that and process it, and then you soak it, and it's mucilaginous. That's helpful for inflammation, helpful for reducing chronic pain in joints, helpful for the GI, the digestive tract, helpful for all kinds of things like that. Mallow is known as an invasive weed all over Southern California. People look at it and scorn, and it also has a mucilaginous property. So the herbal action is the same. So what that means is if you needed to soothe tissue, you could use either of those interchangeably. There's not one that's better than the other. So mallow then will have some other alkaloids and compounds which slippery elm doesn't have, and slippery elm will have some alkaloids and compounds which mallow doesn't have. But if you're narrowing things down to herbal action, the function, right? What am I trying to do to this thing or this condition or this person, right? What are the herbal actions that I need to cover? So that's how I formulate, thinking about, okay, well, Lyme disease or a cut, right? So a cut is reduce inflammation, help mineralize the body so that it can have the minerals to rebuild itself, make sure there's no infection that can happen. So those are three needs that can be addressed by herbal actions, right? And then if you pair the herbal actions, then you could do a lot of formulas with a lot of different herbs, and it will do a similar thing because they're not doing it for you, right? And this is where I think we make the mistake. The herbs aren't doing it for you. They're not being your immune system. The herbs are giving your immune system the fuel to heal itself. And that's the difference between like a pharmaceutical perspective, which is like, oh, take this pill and swallow it and it'll fix all your problems, which obviously doesn't work, versus herbs will say, hey, we'll take you to the precipice and then you have to do the work yourself. So nettle, for example, stinging nettle, right, has the building blocks for repairing damaged cell tissue. So damaged cell tissue means whether you have a sprain, a break, inflammation, sore muscles, hives, rashes, bruises, anything like that. It's all going to require building blocks to repair it. So the bloodstream takes, the food you eat, and it turns that into the bloodstream, and then the blood carries vitamins, minerals, etc. So you now take whatever, stinging nettle tea, and you drink it, goes in your stomach, goes into your bloodstream. What you have now is iron, magnesium, folic acid, all these silica, all these building blocks. What they do is then go to the issue of where it needs repair, and then your immune system can take those molecules and start sewing them into the damage. And if you don't have those available, your body can't repair itself as fast. So nettle doesn't go in there and repair your body. It doesn't sew your body together again. It helps to provide the minerals to actually have your body do it for itself. So when we're looking at herbalism, when we're looking at what is the function of herbs, they're not to fix things. They're not to make our problems go away. They're to help tonify and strengthen the body to upgrade its immune function, which is a billion-year-old process of consuming the external environment and upgrading, consuming the external environment, upgrading, consuming the external environment, upgrading. So what this is an amalgamation of everything that's ever eaten anything, right? So from amoebas, right, from single-celled organisms to multi-cell organisms to mammals, there's been this trajectory of consuming, analyzing, and eliciting immune response. Consuming, analyzing, eliciting immune response. Consuming, analyzing, eliciting immune response. Now we've gotten to modern culture, and we have these concept of isolated ingredients. We have these concepts of totalitarianism. We have these concepts of president. We have these concepts of CEO. We have these concepts of hierarchy. We have these concepts of the food pyramid. We have these concepts of isolated ingredients. All that is isolating and narrowing the diversity, right? The love of diversity and what you lose in diversity, right? So it's not like, oh, take 50 milligrams of stinging nettle for 60 days and you will heal this. It's like, crave stinging nettle, drink it until you're done, and then switch to something else, or add lemon balm stinging nettle. Oh, I like this. 3 days later, oh wow, I have some ginger. Here, boil some ginger, pour it on the nettle. Oh, nettle ginger tea. Oh, I really like this. I'm going to do this for a week. Oh wow, you know, I just got this chaga in. Let me try chaga and ginger and nettle. Oh, lemon balm. And then you're taking tinctures on the other side of that, and hopefully custom formulating based on the signs and the symptoms that your body is showing you. So that's really what it is, more than, oh, I'm sick, how can I fix this? Let me take this isolated ingredient to make it go away. That paradigm doesn't work. It's old, it's crusty, it never works, it's full of false promises. So just like that alchemical idea of, oh, well, once we find gold in all things, then we'll all be rich as can be. That's a corruption of alchemy. That's not what alchemy is about. Alchemy is about understanding that the gold is not physical, that the gold is in the thread between all things that's already present, right? What is that thread between all things that can never change, that doesn't shift, that doesn't grow, that doesn't evolve because it was never born and never died? That's the alchemical gold. It's not a thing. You know, but we're so enmeshed in thing culture that we use herbs as things too. And we say, oh, you know, I think one of the main things we might want to do as a community is use herbs to work with herbs. And that would completely change how we teach future generations to interact with plant species. So if you work with an herb, you honor that it's an ancestor. You honor that it's a sentient being. If you use herbs, you're just being an exploitive capitalist. And yeah, use herbs to fix your problems. And then we're just into pharmaceutical paradigm. You know, it's the same kind of deal where we're, you know, doing behaviors and patterns that we know aren't best for us. And then when stuff gets really bad, we look for something to just fix the problem. And that's not a reap what you sow kind of perspective. That's a I am always a victim of the things that are happening to me perspective. And that's exactly what, you know, corporatism and capitalism and totalitarianism want you to feel. That's exactly the plan, is to try to isolate us from our neighbors, try to isolate us from each other, try to make us hide behind screens, try to make us afraid of our neighbors, of the boogeyman in many shapes and sizes, so that we don't come together and synergize, so that we don't have a synergistic collective experience. And so that's basically what Cherry Valley is intended to be. So many of you probably know, some of you know, I've been staying at Cherry Valley Cooperative Farm all summer since I came back from the West Coast last year, and grew an herb farm and hung out with Emily Brady of Earth and Origins, and we herb farmed together and had a whole bunch of people come through, taught a whole bunch of classes at Cherry Valley. We've been developing infrastructure here. They've been going wild with building a septic tank, building a yurt village, building totally, 170 person CSA. There's a farm stand here. There's all kinds of stuff going on. And so what I've been sitting through is, obviously things pretty much shut down here in the winter. It gets really cold. The snow will come, classes kind of slow down for me, and I was feeling like maybe I should just go on tour again, because, you know, instead of just like hibernating out here and, you know, living in a tent and burning, you know, wood until next year, maybe I should just go on another tour. And so I made a poll and people were like, yeah, go on a tour. So I'm going on a tour starting in October. Hitting up a bunch of states. So if you're interested to connect, come hang out, come to classes, let me know. I'll be going from New Jersey to Pennsylvania to Ohio to Indiana to Illinois to Oklahoma, New Mexico. So I got a bunch of classes there. I'm going to be chilling with Jesse and Johanna. in their wonderful permaculture homestead where they have a cob house. They're finishing off the cob house. And my intention is to travel to all these different places because they're all homesteads and they're all budding eco-villages. And predominantly I want to get people out there to create community, create a sense of community. So when we teach workshops, we teach classes, we're going to create a sense of community there and start establishing these hubs so that I can travel west to east throughout the year. And each one of them is going to provide different habitat, different area, different teaching capacity, different land structure, different home levels. So I got some friends, all over the country who are opening their doors to that kind of vision. And I'm excited to continue to work with them and do classes and workshops. I got the Forage Mobile fully stocked with all kinds of herbal goodies, so I'll be posting that and continue to do little sales. Thank you to everyone who supports, whether you buy a tincture, whether you donate, whether you join, whether you share stuff on Instagram. That's really helpful and I really appreciate it. My intention is really simple. It's about the plants. It's not about me. Never was about me. It's always about the plants. It's about teaching herbalism and giving all this away. And hopefully, instead of me trying to bait you into some other thing like, oh well, now sign up for this or sign up for that or sign up for this. Hopefully this is meaningful and you can help to fund this to keep happening with your support. Whether it's sharing things, whether it's trying out tinctures, whether it's buying a tincture, ordering a custom blend of anything we do. That helps to continue that these things can just happen, because ultimately what I'd like to do is just bridge the gap, right, between here we are as human beings having an interaction, and that's what's real to me, and this is as real as it's going to get through screens, unless we jump through the screens and we end up hanging out, which a lot of us do, and I really appreciate that too. So what I'm going to do is head out this fall, starting in October. I'm going to do a pawpaw tour. I'm going to collect seeds all over the country and help diversify the pawpaw and be teaching all about the pawpaw as I go. And if you're interested in pawpaw seeds as I travel, you could just send me an email at dan@returntonature.us, and I'm making a list so that I'll send out pawpaws and basically pawpaw seeds. And the idea is that, as long as you pay for shipping and hopefully make a donation extra, I'll send you out pawpaw seeds. You can plant them in your location. And then the more I travel across the country, the more we'll have proliferation of powerful, pungent, perfect, I don't have any more P words, pawpaws. So that's kind of the idea, is follow the trail. And so I'll be coming back to Cherry Valley in the spring. By that time we'll be talking about yurts. They're putting up the yurts. They had to build a septic tank. So basically what happened is we got caught shitting in buckets. So we were doing humanure composting. Everything was a closed system, and we were off the septic. And then the township came and they did an assessment, and they basically said that we weren't allowed to shit in buckets anymore. So what we've had to do is build like a, I don't know, $50,000 septic tank here, which gets us to yurts by the spring. So that's the goal here, is hopefully by then there'll be a community of yurts. One of them is going to be a 30-foot teaching yurt, and out of that I'm going to be hosting lots of workshops, classes. I'm going to do a year-long mentorship in the physical here, where people could come stay. You could tent, you can have a bucket to poop in eventually, and come learn. And I'll be doing a lot of those kind of things coming the next year. For the winter, I'm probably going to just tour California and meet and connect with a whole bunch of friends out there. So if you're in California or any of the places I mentioned, please be in touch. And yeah, check out, I also have the tour dates, some of the tour dates up on my website, returntonature.us, as well as on Facebook, Return to Nature Skills. And please help spread the word of classes. If you have friends in the area who you think would be interested in herbalism and foraging, fermentation, all kinds of topics like that, let them know. Spread the word. And I also have a whole bunch of tinctures, including what I'm going to do is soon I have 6 St. John's wort tinctures, which I harvested from Cherry Valley Co-op. I shook the jar, it turned red instantly. It's a beautiful red color, And I have 6 of those available. They're $20 each plus $8 shipping. If you're interested in working with St. John's wort, which is a fresh tincture, usually people get dried tincture. So if you're interested in a fresh tincture of St. John's wort, just send me a private message and I'd love to share that with you. And I love the feedback. So if you're out there and you have something that you've bought from me or gotten from me and you're taking it, let me know how you like it. Let me know how it tastes. Let me know how it feels. Let me know how much you're taking it, what it's doing, you know, and please tag me and share it. And sending lots of love and blessings. I hope you all have a beautiful day. Really excited that the fall's here. It's kind of a relax, it's a relief. It was like 95 degrees here until like probably 3 weeks ago, so it was a really intense time. Well, I'm gonna get back into the herb garden. I haven't been here in a week, so lots to harvest. I got an intern coming through. Also, if you're interested in helping to harvest up the garden, put the garden away for this year, and you live anywhere near Cherry Valley Cooperative in Princeton, New Jersey, just send me a message. I've had all kinds of wonderful, helpful interns come. Griffin and Liz and all these wonderful people came through to help weed out tons of Canada thistle, to help harvest, to help plant. And so everything that I grew at Cherry Valley went into, you know, a tea blend or a tincture, which we're going to be having available through our CSA as well as just you all. So this St. John's wort tincture is Cherry Valley special, right? Walked around Cherry Valley with, I believe, Griffin and a couple other interns. We harvested St. John's wort together with lots of prayer and made that tincture, and then brought it to the apothecary, bottled it up, labeled it, and now we have it available to you as a special batch of Cherry Valley St. John's wort, and that's it. There's a small batch, and so I'm really getting into, you know, small batches of wonderful herbal goodies to share with you all, and so lots more of that coming soon. Have a beautiful day. God bless you all. Peace. Oh, also, thank you so much for anybody who submitted a song suggestion. Last night I posted on the story, you know, do you have any suggested cover songs? Definitely people really made some cool cover song suggestions. If you're talking about an artist, just tell me what song, because I don't know. Somebody's like, anything by Nako, he's got like 3,000 songs, so help me out, pick one out instead of making it a whole catalog, because it's too overwhelming that way. So thanks to everybody who posted that, who had some songs to share, and now I'll be doing those, so it'll be really fun. Peace, blessings, and plant power.